Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. We are here today with episode 1796 of the Cabral Concept. We are going to be taking you through the one diet-related factor that's directly correlated to cancer and cardiovascular disease. Meaning if there's one thing that we agree upon between all diets, whether it be keto, carnivore, low carb, high carb, Mediterranean, you name it, there is one factor that really goes across all of those. And if you do not follow this one thing, the likelihood that you die much sooner from all-cause mortality, which we're going to be going over, but namely cardiovascular disease and cancer, goes up exponentially. So that is what I want to share with you here today. I'm going to link up the studies, of course, for you as well. This one directly out of, let's see, JAMA, I believe, and I will link that up for you as well. Yes, JAMA. And just about 12 months old. So I wanted to take my time. I really wanted to go through this study, and I know I wanted to make a whole show on it because, again, there are so many complications out there, right? People make diet way more challenging than it needs to be. It doesn't need to be anywhere near as challenging as it is that people make it out to be. I will link up some of the previous shows below, the foundation of all diets, a day in the life of my Mediterranean diet, like all of these different things. I will take you through it. It's honestly so much simpler than you could ever imagine. Today, like I was even thinking that at lunch, just about an hour ago, I brought with me just a couple of cups of veggies. That's it. I mean, literally, I just on my own here in my office. I have very little space to be able to create any gourmet meals, that's for sure, but I have a little toaster oven. And I brought with me some frozen veggies. Honestly, wasn't going to complicate the equation. I had some frozen cube squash. I had some frozen broccoli, cauliflower, carrots. That's what it was. And it was about 3 cups total. I cooked that. I added some hemp hearts on top, about 3 tablespoons, 3 heaping tablespoons. And then I added some olive oil, a little bit of sea salt. It was fantastic. I mean, it was so simple, and anybody could just make creative different variations of that. That probably cost $3, like honestly $3, and it took all of 30 minutes to heat up in a toaster oven. So again, we don't have to make diet very complicated. However, some people might say, well, I don't want to do squash because it's too many carbohydrates. Some people say as well, I don't like to do too many veggies because they hurt my stomach. Like there's all sorts of different reasons, and I get it. I understand all of people's vantage points. Remember, all of these things can be corrected. There's no doubt about it. If you say you can't eat carbs because you start to really gain a lot of weight, again, I get it, but that's an imbalance within your body. But regardless of that, let's say you are doing the keto diet or a high carb diet, or you're doing the low carb diet, or you're doing carnivore diet, it doesn't matter because all of the experts, right? And sometimes I like to use that term a little bit loosely, but all of the experts across the board, I hope, can all agree that the number one diet factor that we have to pay attention to is certain processed foods, which I'm going to go over in just one moment, because there is a little bit of a difference. But what I want to share with you is this, because this is an enormous study. So for about 45,000 adults, the exact number, 44,551, this was done in France, tracked people from the age of 45 years and older. And it's, let's see here, researchers followed the health and diet of these subjects over 8 years. Okay, so we have about 45,000 people in France, traditionally a country with a little bit higher life expectancy, meaning age of mortality, than the United States and a lot of other Western-based countries. So 45,000 adults, and we have 8 years. And we're looking at this and basically taking out all of the different factors that would skew this particular study. And what it found was this. This is absolutely, again, I would say beyond a shadow of a doubt. And let me explain one thing to you. So when you're looking at research studies, what I want you to look at is something called a p-value. And again, you don't need to know deep into statistics and probability and what all of this means. But basically, the best p-value you're going to find from most studies is a 0.001. So whenever you see the little symbol, it's basically just a lowercase p, uppercase P, it doesn't matter, a less than symbol, and then it will say 0, meaning it's less than 1, 0.001. So I want you, because I want to be able to teach you on this show how to read studies, how to look at these studies, how to evaluate them, and really understand them. So a good study will show you that p-value, okay? And so basically this means that assuming everything else in their particular study is correct, the probability that a result could have happened by chance is less than 0.1, okay? So basically, when we're looking at a p-value of 0.001, we're looking at less than 1 in 1,000 chance of being wrong. So that's, I mean, again, like that's considered the gold standard that we're looking for in a lot of these studies. And the reason I mention this is that this study had a p-value of 0.001. And this is what it found. Over the 8 years, and the 45,000 people that were studied in this, that there was, this is very big. It found that every 10% increase in consuming processed foods was linked with a 14% higher chance of early death. Now, that is a enormous statistics. Again, like this is a very, very big statistic. And I want you to understand is that it doesn't happen by chance. So that's why when I shared with you the p-value, that when you look at every 10% increase in processed food, okay? So let's say they, their diet went from 0% processed to 10% processed. And then what if it was 10% processed and goes to 20% processed? Well, for every 10% increase in consuming processed foods, it was linked with a 14% higher chance of early death. So that means that this could begin to become exponential. So let's just say that many people have 10% of their diet in as processed foods. And I'm going to name those in just a second, but think about this. So right now, you very well may have 10% of your diet as processed. So it's increasing your chance of cancer and cardiovascular disease by 14%. That's not a trivial number. But what if 20% of your diet is processed? Are we adjusting that now for another 14% at 28%? That is what the study is indicating. That's what it's leading to, that these numbers can begin to jump. And that is why you see essentially 1 in 2, 1 in 3 people as adults getting cardiovascular disease or cancer. And I would say inside of that realm is type 2 diabetes as well as high blood pressure. And I'm going to link up my podcast. I would love you to listen to this one because essentially it's all the top causes of mortality. And you'll notice that if you do not fall prey to the top 4, which are the cardiovascular disease, blood pressure, cancer, and stroke, we would say high blood pressure, all of that's in there, type 2 diabetes, that you are going to live most likely a long, healthy life, barring any accidents or congenital-based defects in your body. So and again, that's regardless of your DNA, your genetics, all those different things. It really is like that plays a smaller role, less of a role than you may think. It matters. It absolutely matters. But once you learn how to balance that, you're good. I mean, do some people have a genetic ability to live to 110 years old, where some only till 90? Absolutely. Like, I'm not going to discount that either. However, average life expectancy is 74 years for men and about 77 years for women. So we know that many people get cancer in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and cardiovascular disease is the same. So again, it's not a mystery. And the biggest thing, like if you could just change one thing, it's these processed foods. So let's name those right now. And then I would like to share with you why these processed foods are causing so many issues inside of the body. So here are some of the things, but I'll go through them right now. So think of it this way. Breakfast bars, like, are you taking a bar on the go? Is that something that you're adding to your diet? Packaged snack foods like Doritos and chips and Fritos and Funyuns and all of those different types of things. I was going back to my childhood and trying to think of like some of my favorites. Funyuns would have been over there. Cool Ranch Doritos would have been there. Cheetos would have been in there. Like, those are all things I used to love when I was a kid. Well, all of those are snack foods that are highly processed, okay? A lot of instant soups, instant foods, instant noodles, all of that is considered processed food. I would say in the same category is pre-cooked meals, okay? So sometimes you just have those microwave meals, or even falling into that category can be things like chicken nuggets. I mean, the more processed they are, the worse they are for you. If they've already been pre-cooked and breaded and have all sorts of oils on them, that is not what you want, right? I mean, it should just basically say on the package chicken if that's what it is. If not, it's more of a processed food. But rather than me naming every single food, it could be like your cookies and your crackers and pastries and all those things. Again, those are highly processed. Think of it this way. Anything that comes in a box or a bag is suspect. And anything, I would say, that does not have a single ingredient would be suspect, okay? So when you look at Again, when you look at an apple, it's an apple. That is not processed. When you get them inside of a bag and it has 6 ingredients, well, I mean, how is that apple lasting when it's been sliced inside of a bag and cut up and all? Well, it's a lot of preservatives have been added to that. I'm going to get to that in just one moment. So what I'd like to share with you is this. If it comes in a box or a bag, it is suspect. If it comes packaged, it's suspect. But I want to share with you this. Let's say that it's almonds in a bag, or some types of nuts or seeds or hemp parts or anything like that, single ingredient, that's not processed. I want to throw that out there. That has not been processed. It's simply bagged for easier distribution. I mean, that's basically what it is, right? I mean, how are you going to get those hemp parts out of the store? They have to be in a bag. So that's really, really important to look at it. Now, so when you think about that, when you go through your average day, how much food do you eat that comes from a box or a bag? If you make oatmeal in the morning and it's oats, it's not processed. But let's say you buy, again, a breakfast bar that's been cooked and processed and has all sorts of oils in it. Well, that's a processed food. Again, muffins, same thing. So go right from your breakfast to maybe mid-morning snack to what you're having at lunch to mid-afternoon if you're doing a snack then, and then at dinner, and then, of course, before bed. Popcorn is a processed food. Ice cream is a processed food. So just think about it. It's like how much of your diet, and you can look at it in terms of calories. People always ask, like, well, how do I calculate it? You can just calculate it as calories, honestly. It's just the easiest way to figure out your 10% of the diet. So it matters. Again, I think like most of us are probably somewhere around 10%, like out of convenience. A lot of people just say, oh, well, if you eat 2,000 calories a day, then is 200 calories from that food coming from processed food. And it very well may. Again, like you just kind of look at your overall diet, or maybe it's only once a week or twice a week. So for example, for me, it's probably like once a week. I definitely do a cheat meal, and it's probably pasta for that cheat meal. And I'll probably have dessert. And, who knows what it'll be for dessert. My favorite thing is probably cookies. So it'll be some processed cookies. But again, do I worry about that at the moment? No, I enjoy every second of it, knowing that I don't do that every single day. So again, there's a give and take to all of this. But what I will always want you to look at is not what you do just in that one moment. Don't beat yourself up over that. What I want you to look at is what's it typical on a daily basis. That's what really matters. Okay, so why though are these processed foods causing so many issues inside of our body? Let's take a look at it. And I'm a strong believer in this first one. It is high heat processing with a lot of these things. I truly believe this. And I think the same goes for cooking your proteins. I really do. I think cooking meat and foods at really high temperatures, like broiling it. I've seen the research on acrylamides, and you can go back to my previous shows on acrylamides if you'd like to look that up, which is a carcinogen that causes cancer. But the high heat, I believe, changes the protein structure. Basically, inside of all foods, there is a protein-based structure. I believe it changes the overall molecular structure of the food. It's why I believe that microwaving is probably not your best bet. I know it's super convenient. I know it cooks faster than anything else. I just don't know, as they say, the juice is worth the squeeze. I just don't believe that it is. I think that cooking at a lower heat temperature is probably the best way. And here's the thing. I learned this over when I was in India, and I am not a chef by any means, but they wanted us, anyone that was in this internship, and there was probably about 10 of us, wanted to learn how they cook in Ayurveda. So we simply took a cooking class. It was more a demonstration. We weren't actually cooking, but I took let's call it a cooking class. I took a cooking class while I was over at an Ayurvedic clinic. This is a big retreat center. This place was unbelievable. It was beautiful. So I was there. I was watching the cooking demonstration, and everything was on low heat. Everything cooked on low heat. And in Ayurveda, they believed that preserved the energy inside of the food. So that was really interesting to look at that. And again, every time I've gone against Ayurveda, I've always been wrong. So I know not to bet against Ayurvedic medicine anymore, even if we don't fully know yet why these things happen. So be careful broiling and cooking at very high heats. Okay. The second one is this. There is a lot of additives and preservatives added to these foods. And when these chemicals are added to foods, what it's doing is it's allowing these foods to last longer. But what is not very well understood is what do these preservatives and additives, which are chemicals, do to our body when we consume enough of them? And it may lead to, again, an inflammatory-based state. It may lead to gut dysbiosis or gut-based issues. And I want to share with you, this is really big because of the acrylamides, which I just spoke about, as well as these additives and chemicals. Because really, when we're talking about cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, any dis-ease of the body, we're talking about an inflammatory imbalance. That means high levels of inflammation. It's not low level, it's high levels of inflammation. We have a dysfunctional immune system. And again, the immune system isn't even dysfunctional. It's reacting to what? Well, it's reacting to the acrylamides, it's reacting to the preservatives and chemicals from the environment. That's why when I talk about toxicity, it's a real thing because it creates real inflammation in your body. And then yes, it needs a pathway, and the pathway could be inflammation of the arteries and the heart and cardiovascular disease. Same thing, a vascular system with blood pressure, and it can cause all sorts of issues, whether it be in the brain or the body as well. So it does always go back to inflammation, but do always remember, and I did a podcast on this as well, inflammation is not a root cause, all right? Inflammation is not a disease. So if you're only treating inflammation, and I really encourage health practitioners to go back and listen to that podcast as well. Everybody should, but definitely healthcare practitioners, because you don't always want to be masking inflammation. You want to say, well, why is there inflammation in the body right now? And then if you know why, okay, then you can kind of quiet those symptoms in your patient or your wellness client, because they do cause suffering. But you don't want to get rid of them without knowing the root cause, because if you do, well, how do you know if you're actually getting well or not? That's a really important factor to look at that. So a big thing as well is plastics. So when we are talking about juices in a bottle, plastics, whatever it might be, a lot of these things, like for example, for Equilife, we have climate controlled warehouses. That means that the warehouse temperature never gets above like 80 degrees and never really gets below, let's say, 55, 60 degrees. So all the products are climatized, right? They're at a specific temperature, which does not allow capsules, herbs, foods, whatever to go bad. That's basically it. Our probiotics are shelf stable. They're shelf stable even above 95 degrees, 100 degrees on a hot day. Like that's what they're meant to do. So again, so food science and technology is a big thing. And if you know that, you know how all these things work. You don't need to put your probiotics in a refrigerator anymore unless it's really by a company that doesn't use shelf stabilization, which allows it then to be at a temperature that is just normal, just to be left out on your shelf. It's also a better way, most likely, to create less mold by putting things in your refrigerator, right? So really important, you have less moisture outside of the refrigerator, hopefully. So that's one thing that you want to look at, is these plastics, though, because a lot of warehouses, 100 degrees, right? And these plastics are being, all the bisphenol A and the other types of chemicals inside plastics, which acts as xenoestrogens, if you've listened to just a couple podcasts back. Let's see which podcast that was, actually. So how to clear xenoestrogens from your body was 1790. Hopefully you did tune into that show, because that was a pretty potent one in terms of xenoestrogens and how they clog up your system, create inflammation. And if you don't know what xenoestrogens are, you can check out episode 1769 as well. Okay, a couple more as well. I think this is a big one. Industrialized oils. So when you look at oils, like a lot of these polyunsaturated fats, you'll see that they're used in Ayurveda. So why would Ayurveda use a lot of these polyunsaturated fats? Well, if you look at modern day research, you can just type in Harvard or any of these great universities, and you can see the research on polyunsaturated fats. Believe it or not, the vast majority of research on polyunsaturated fats is positive. It really is. Like, it's very positive. It's probably extremely beneficial, but it can go overboard. So here's the issue, though. And again, I don't want you to think that I love all polyunsaturated fats. The issue with polyunsaturated fats is they're not supposed to be heated. That's the issue, okay? So when you heat up polyunsaturated fats, well, it's destructive. What does it create? It creates reactive oxygen species in the body, creates oxidative stress. That oxidative stress creates what? More inflammation. And it's extremely detrimental to your cells. It actually makes your cell membranes more flimsy. It rusts them from the inside of your body. It literally is rusting the inside of your body. Heated polyunsaturated fatty acids. Well, but what's the issue, though? The issue is heating up soy oils, heating up canola oils, heating up all the different safflower oils, like all these different things. Again, not heated, not really detrimental. You're not going to find a lot of research that shows you that polyunsaturated fats in their natural state are derogatory to the body. You're just not going to find it. Very, very few. The vast majority outweigh it. Do I think that you should load up on polyunsaturated fatty acids? No, but it doesn't mean that you can't eat some nuts that have polyunsaturated fats or some seeds or some fish. Again, like if anything, it's been shown to be heart protective, cancer protective. So I don't want people to confuse you with the fact of polyunsaturated fats. I agree with them though, when it comes to heating these and putting them in processed foods. It's terrible for you. You don't want to heat them up, especially those fake butters. Again, I've been trying to convince my parents of this for years, but when it says like earth balance or any of these specific things, and it's hydrogenated, it's a hydrogenated plant fats, and because they say it comes from plants, that it's automatically healthy. No, it's healthy when it's in its natural state, not when it looks like a block of butter. That it was never meant to look that way. They turned a liquid into a solid. I mean, that is amazing science and technology. However, very detrimental to the human body. We don't want those solids coming into our body. All right, the next one is this: a lot of omega-6s, not enough omega-3s. Most packaged products, most instant foods, most processed foods are going to be higher in omega-6s versus omega-3s. Should you get more omega-6s in your body than omega-3s? Most likely. The ideal ratio is somewhere around a 3-to-1 to a 1-to-1. Some people believe 1-to-1. Probably not. I mean, that's probably not the ideal ratio. It looks like in nature, it's somewhere around 3-to-1. So when we run our omega-3 fatty acid testing, and again, I can't recommend it enough, it's an easy at-home lab test. We'll link it up today at stephencabral.com/1796 with a bunch of those previous podcasts as well. It's an amazing lab. I just ran it actually with both my daughters to make sure they're at the right level, because it's hard to get kids to eat a lot of fish. It really is. And a lot of their omega-3s are they're just not getting as much. So we try to supplement with a little bit. And the lab test will tell you to be at a 5-to-1 for sure. It says or better though. So ideally you want to be at a 3-to-1. That's what anyone in my practice, I say you have to be at a 3-to-1. It's honestly as easy, and we've tested this over the years. That's why we know what we're doing, like it works, because we just lab test it. But 2 soft gels of the omega-3 supports. I can't link that up, but you can go to equa.life to find those. 2 soft gels or 1 teaspoon of the liquid. It's that easy of the omega-3 support. Honestly, that'll get you to a 3-to-1. You can lab test. If you ever need a little bit more, what do? Well, you take 1 more soft gel or another half a teaspoon or teaspoon. But we never overdo things. We just do the right amount for the person's body. What if you eat fish 4 times a week? Well, check out my show on high omega-3 fish. And if you do, well, you're likely going to be okay. It is challenging. Again, more challenging for many of my private clients that are vegan. You just have to do your best. That's it. And there are some vegan omega-3s out there. They're not great yet. I have hope in the future that they will be. The issue is right now you're getting all of your omega-3s from DHA, and as I've shown you before in a lot of these labs, it's EPA that's the one that's more lacking. Okay, but enough about that. So the last 2 I want to go through are really processed carbs, which break down faster in the body and raise blood sugar. Okay, apple is fine. Blueberries, fine. Cherries, fine. Sweet potatoes, fine. But what if you were to eat crackers, right? I always talk about this. Does it pass we'll call it the cracker test, right? So basically, you're going to take your food, and if you can just rub it together, if you hear me rubbing my hands together, or you see me on video rubbing it together, and that food turns to dust, well, that's going to be assimilated really quickly, okay? So again, if your ramen noodles or instant noodles or your breakfast bar, or any of those things that you're eating, crackers and chips, any of those things just turn to dust, popcorn. Well, you know that it's going to be assimilated quickly. So the issue with that is it could spike your blood sugar, again, leading to a cortisol-based spike or not, it may not, but it's certainly going to lead to inflammation. So that's a big issue. The last one I want to leave you with is gluten. Many people have a gluten sensitivity. It does not mean an allergy. Again, run the food sensitivity test, same place. You can find it over at Equalife or with your local IHP or ND or functional medicine doctor that specializes in this. Many people have a 24-hour to 72-hour reaction later after they eat the food. So how do you know? Well, the best way is to run that lab to actually figure it out. But there's so many people with gluten-based sensitivities, and they don't even know it. it's something like, I made a little note for myself, but I know it's over 50 different clinical diseases right now have been tied to a gluten-based sensitivity as well. Just look at thyroid. That's an easy one, with 1 out of 5 to between 5 and 8 women suffering from low thyroid, and about 1 out of every 10 men. And it's not just gluten. I did a whole health results accelerator on thyroid issues, how to overcome them. But you have to understand is it's not just gluten, but gluten can be cross-reactive with other protein-based molecules. It can show up in the immune system as a foreign-based invader. It can cause inflammatory-based issues, molecular mimicry, and it can begin to break down your thyroid. So it's certainly not a good one for sure. So when I look at studies like this, 45,000 people, 44,500, over 8 years, every 10% increase in processed food increased all-cause mortality, at least for cardiovascular disease and cancer, by 14%. Knowing that probably a third of most people's diets, maybe even half, are processed foods, right? Whether it be pizza or fast food. Fast food is going to be processed by its very nature. So how many of people's diet are processed? I would say quite a bit. And that is why no matter what diet you believe in, it should come from whole, ideally organic, mainly plant-based foods. You can add in your wild game or your grass-fed beef or your pastured eggs or your wild fish, anything like that. But the majority should be just clean, whole food, single ingredient. It's difficult to go wrong that way. And then, of course, you can draw straws for your macros from your carbs, proteins, and fats. So hopefully that was helpful. Thank you so much for tuning into today's show. Of course, if this was helpful, please do feel free to share it with anyone else you believe it could serve. Take care.